welcome to the Exit Only Theater podcast.
Hey.
I'm JP Lee. In front of me is...
Hello. I was trying to think of something cool. I'm out. No, this is Adrian.
We're hitting a wall.
Yeah.
No, we wanted to go into a Straight Outta Compton episode because I feel like we thought maybe we were going to miss the curve on it the first couple of days after the film came out, but it looks like this movie has legs, so it's appropriate for us to hit on it this weekend as well.
Yeah, it was. I know we were off for a while.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie,
yeah,
we were off for a while.
About a 10-day hiatus.
There were a lot of stuff that we had to deal with, but you know what? We were still watching movies.
Of course.
We had a lot of stuff. I know I watched Man from U.N.C.L.E., American Ultra, I just saw the other day, but there was one film, obviously, that everybody was talking about. Straight Outta Compton.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We wanted to get the discussion started with just our usual, did we like it? Did we not like it? What's our first impressions of the film? You want to go first?
Yeah, this is the thing, I liked it. I really did. Like, I know, like, we're obviously, since we're a podcast, we're going to get really technical.
Of course.
A movie like this, honestly, I liked it. It was really good. This thing, like, it was, yeah, I really liked it. There were some spots that could have been better. We're going to get into that in a little bit. I always do that, don't I?
It's okay.
I always do that. It's like,
we do usually get to everything, so you're not teasing anyone in a terrible way.
Could you imagine me be like, imagine like me taking somebody on a date? It's like, you know what? One day I'm gonna take you out somewhere nice one day. We'll get to that. But for now, enjoy this dollar menu burger. Like,
you're eating the main course. We're gonna get to dessert. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. You know, but we never do. No, thank God. I just talk and talk, and then we forget.
That's the worst.
Yeah,
that's the worst. You're not that big of a tease on the show. We actually get to most of the stuff we talk about. Most things you tend to say we're gonna talk about, we get to.
We'll get to my character one day. We'll get to my character one day. No.
I guess from my perspective, I mean, we talked about this earlier, is that you had a little more familiarity with N.W.A than I did. I obviously knew they existed, and I knew a lot of the main members of the group, but I was much, I mean, we were around the same age, but we were both much younger when those bands were, when that band was coming out, and when they were relevant. I don't think either of us were even born when their first album came out. So, for me, I was familiar, but wasn't well-versed in it, so I looked at it as, I mean, if it felt a little VH1, for me it was fine. I was like, this is kind of like a dramatic behind the music, and I love it because I don't know enough. Like, and this is really interesting to me. So my overall opinion is I really like the movie. Yeah. Yeah, it's not perfect, but and for a 2.5-hour runtime, felt pretty quick.
For a cast that we've never seen in a movie before, well, at least the main character was.
For the most part, yeah.
For a director that, you know, we haven't really seen a lot of, I guess, top shelf kind of stuff from before. F. Gary Gray, who directed Law Abiding Citizen, but you go back, and obviously his relationship with Ice Cube and Dr. Dre goes back with Set It Off and Friday. Yep. But yeah, you watch a movie like this, you could tell he can handle, well, at least for the most part, he handled a really hardcore subject matter. For those of you that saw the film, you know what that is. My only, it could have been, it could have been more focused.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say it could have been better.
That if you want to.
Yeah, like it could have been more focused because my biggest complaint was in the beginning of the movie. You notice that they're hitting on a specific theme is how the black youth in America are mistreated, whether it be by society and or law enforcement. Like that was a big thing, and that obviously translates to what we do today.
It's a very relevant.
But I just that theme is like deserves a discussion in itself. But I would say for the sake of the film, I wish they would have stuck with that theme throughout the entire way because it went from the first half hitting that theme, saying this is what inspired N.W.A, which was like, oh my, you know, that's really hits home. But then the second half of the film became a VH1 story to me, where it was just like, we're gonna follow Dr. Dre when he met Suge Knight, Snoop Dogg, Tupac, and I'm like, wait, that's not why. I'm like, you had a theme. Like, we know that you know these guys. We know it.
Right.
Everybody does. Everybody knows Dr. Dre's story.
And I think because you were on the ride for the first hour of the movie, you were like, you didn't realize that it was turning into that until it was too late. And you're like, no, go back to how good it was the first hour. Like, and I'm the same way. Where I think it started out strong, having 3 major characters be described in 3 independent ways. I thought that was interesting. Yeah. Obviously, there were more members of N.W.A that maybe could have complicated the story more if they'd given too much attention to them. Yeah. So I understand what they did with focusing on the 3 major characters. My problem, and maybe why it unravels a little bit as a narrative film, is that where Eazy-E's character, and I say it as a character because obviously these are interpretations of these real people, is Eazy's character is probably the most complicated of the 3, and you see maybe not as much you see an arc to a certain extent. You see just kind of like how he first of all kind of stumbles into the music industry as sort of the quote, the one with the capital of the group. That's kind of the only one that really lives the life of the lyrics that they're writing, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. But his character, I think, was so complex and so interesting, and to a certain extent evolved. Whereas Dre and Ice Cube's characters, they moved their plots along, and you saw them kind of progress as musicians, I guess. Like, we didn't really see them go from, like, struggling writers to eloquent lyricists. They were kind of just always good throughout, which was also kind of stagnant, which is kind of weird, which, if that's just how they were, that's fine, but there wasn't as much development with either of those characters, and they both seemed too similar for me. Yeah. Like, they were both... There's Eazy-E's character, and then it was Dre and Ice Cube. And even though they left at different times and had different arcs and had different developments as solo artists, it just felt like those two were lumped together throughout the movie, and it could have been much more dynamic than that. And if you want to jump into the complicated relationship that like female characters play, or the lack thereof.
Yeah, that's definitely something that was very apparent. Like, obviously, like when you watch the film, like whenever you're gonna follow a music group, especially ones that it's an all male group, it's gonna be very, you're gonna see things that you're gonna be like, man, they mistreated women that way. They were partying. That's the thing. Like, they were partying, and that's the thing that like any young kid, regardless black, white, doesn't matter. When you're partying as a kid, you're gonna go crazy. You're literally gonna do
and rock and roll at any genre.
But as far as like the way the film depicted, there was a lot of controversy. I don't know, you brought this up to me because I was just like, I'm like, you know what? I noticed that in the film.
Yeah. And
where a lot of the quote unquote like hot women that were involved that happened to be African American happened to be very light skinned, and then all the, I guess, like the other women, everybody else was dark, overweight. And
there was a weird dichotomy that I don't know if it was intentional. I heard in certain discussions on, I think it was on NPR and a couple other things, that there was a little controversy in the casting for those things, and that's a discussion of just on a whole nother basis of just cultural differences and just how people perceive other people based on certain skin tones, and that is a very complicated issue that I feel like neither of us have as much expertise in, but it's definitely noticed in the film, and it's definitely something that was brought up by various people going into when I saw it.
Yeah.
And you can't ignore it, and just the way women are portrayed in that film. A few of them are a couple of moments lead to very funny, humorous, like, Bye Felicia moments.
That was a really nice little moment.
Yeah. That I'm like, I shouldn't be laughing.
Yeah.
But for me, if you can remove yourself from it just being like the duality of guys and girls, and the guys are glamorized and the girls are sort of like materialized, I guess. If you just look at it as just a funny circumstance, it's
It was a nice little nudge because like there was things like that, the good, like the fun moments of the movie, like that was definitely like one of the highlights, because obviously that's a big thing now, the Bye Felicia thing.
Yeah.
But it was actually started on Friday, the movie, and then like the fact that they nutted it.
How true is it?
I was like,
the context of the story, probably not very.
It was a very rough scene, but at the same time, like how they were able to humorize something like that take my hat off to the director.
There are a couple moments like that, and it's not just with female characters, that they sprinkle a few really good nuggets of humor in the first half of the movie. When they're recording their first big song together, and they're trying to easy to write to listen to the track and to like voice it, and he's just struggling, and you just hear like they're like, you're the only one that drives this kind of car, and they're like, don't you drive a car? He's like, dude, I don't even have a car. Like the way that just the camaraderie, it was really genuine and really funny, like, and it's just very telling that there's just they were just young kids that were just writing what they saw in their world, and like. I don't know, they fit really good humor nuggets into the first act, maybe first act and a half of the movie. Yeah. And then the second half, it was just, like you said, it was just kind of trugging along. It was just
like you were kind of like, you're window shopping. You're just walking by, you're like, oh, that's when that happened. Oh, check that out. Yeah. Oh, that's when that happened.
Which is enough for someone like me, because I didn't know enough. Yeah. Like, I knew who Suge Knight was, but I'm not as well versed, so it took me a while to realize just how much of a sociopath he seemed to be as a character in this movie. Yeah. But where he fits into the Dre storyline and stuff like that, just for me, it was like I was very broadly aware. Yeah. So I was okay with the surface storylines, but I could see why it was very frustrating for someone who knew what was going on.
It was just they tried to cram a lot at the end, and that's my biggest comment. That's why I feel like that's why I say it's VH1 like, where it was like, oh, he knew Suge Knight, we got to talk about Suge Knight. Oh, that's Snoop Dogg, he discovered Snoop Dogg. Let's talk about that. I was like, that's N.W.A, not the Dr. Dre story.
Right.
Even they almost forgot about Ice Cube too. They were like, when he came back in, I was like, oh, let's have him writing Friday. That'll be funny.
Yeah,
it's
he's just sitting there like, oh, I'm not going to go much further. I'm like, I don't think that's how you write a script.
There was a lot going. Like, that's the thing. Like, there was a lot going on with Ice Cube in the '90s too. Like, I told you before. Like when I have friends that were rappers when I was younger.
Yeah.
And they took it really seriously. So like for me, like, I'm like, I'm not gonna freaking rap. I'm like, but
right.
But the thing is, like, you want to find out like what inspires them. So we would always watch these things, these VH1 documentaries. So we knew all about the stuff.
There's a lot more going on.
Ice Cube had beef with everybody in the '90s. Common, who wasn't even a name back there,
really?
he had beef with him. It's like, you didn't want to talk about that. Common's a name. He could have been in the movie. You shave him, he's 18 years old again.
That's true.
Like, it's
he's not really.
Yeah.
80.
So I'm like, you know what? Like, they could have I think to make a good film, whether it be a biopic, especially if it's a biopic, it's like you have to hit at a theme. You can't cover the entire life. That's too hard.
Right.
They did that with Ray with Jamie Foxx. Mm-hmm. They somewhat did that with Walk the Line.
Right.
It's like, and like they obviously did that with like one of our personal favorites, La Bamba.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like, even though like I know like La Bamba, and you said this perfectly before the show, that it was easy for them because he had such a short life. You know, it's like
it helps you narrow down what you're gonna have to talk about.
Yeah,
for sure.
But like what made that film so good was that there was a theme to it.
Mm-hmm.
It was talking about like, you know, this young Hispanic American. You know, what was life like coming up in California at the time?
Yeah.
And you know, that success and having to deal with that with your family who literally just made the transition from Mexico.
And
you
that's
know, how do you do it?
right there. I mean, it wasn't just about music, whereas this movie's not just about music. It's very similar.
Yeah, and it just, you know, followed the theme. It didn't follow the theme at the end. It did, then it became like a commercial at the end of like, oh, look at Dr. Dre
like
and Ice Cube.
Montage at the
They're
end.
making so much money. Oh, great. Oh, like we didn't know that.
It definitely... It hits home the theme of rags to riches, which is kind of a subplot throughout the whole thing, but it's an afterthought if you put it like that.
No, like just like speaking of like subtext and all that stuff, like how would you say like if as far as storyline goes, like how relevant was this story to you to today's, I guess, with what's going on today? Yeah,
I think there's definitely moments in the movie, there's scenes in the movie that ring very true, that ring kind of eerie, that would feel sensationalized if you weren't seeing them in the news with almost the exact same fervor. Yeah. I mean, obviously the I'm talking about a lot about the police brutality and things like that. The scenes are dramatized to a certain extent, and I'm sure there's heightened language to sort of zero in on the feeling of what it was like to be in that position back then. Yeah. But you see sort of the nuanced version of that in a lot of situations that are happening now. I think they could have maybe I don't think they would have had the awareness of keeping that theme throughout if the film was in production or pre-production for 9 years.
Yeah, it was in production for a long time.
Right, so those themes had been, I'm sure, under the surface ever since, but have been coming into the national forefront for the last couple of years. Yeah. I think if they were able to have had the forethought to keep that running as a very consistent theme, it would have made the film that much more powerful. I feel like they hit on it, and it was kind of like a whack-a-mole moment where they would smack at it a few times, and then they would just kind of let it go. Yeah. Or they would focus again on just moving the plot along, and it got away from what worked with the film. So I feel like they could have done more.
Yeah, I said before, like I completely agree with you. Where like the theme just kind of they lost the theme, and I think that has a lot to do with who was producing the film. Yeah, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube.
I was hoping we'd get to that.
Specifically. Dr. Dre, because you could tell that there was a lot of stuff they chose to leave out, and I understand that because it's hard to tell. You can't tell. It's not a documentary, right? You're not going to tell every little thing. But I wanted to ask you, do you think the story was too watered down? Because there's a lot of things like specifically with the Dr. Dre that I'd like you to get into because it's actually pretty important.
I think, and this to me, I can't watch this movie and not think of Boys in the Hood. Yeah. Because I feel like Boys in the Hood is based on so many true stories that become this really powerful, just one story that kind of lingers and lives on. Yeah. Whereas this film tries to do the same thing, but the names and the faces and the people are too big. It's too big a story to try to, I don't know, thread the themes that you're looking for. And also it's kind of disingenuous to have these people as producers when you know certain things are left out specifically. And like we said with Dre, he has a complicated, and I won't go into too much just because I don't think it's worth.
Yeah.
If they didn't put it in the movie, it may not be worth the heavy discussion of bashing him for not putting it in the movie. But he has a complicated history with women, and he's even
Dr.
today,
Dre does,
Dr.
yeah.
Dre, and even today he's come out apologizing for some of the things he's done to women in the past that aren't referenced at all in the movie.
Yeah.
That when you watch the film, the character Dr. Dre, it makes sense not to have it because he is perceived as obviously one of the clear protagonists of the film, and it would complicate his legacy and it would complicate the story and the plot if he's made to be less than the stellar person he's shown in the movie.
Yeah.
But I think that also takes away from the validity of the overall piece when you are distracted by knowing certain things about them in real life.
Yeah.
For me, like I said, major details of their overall plot I didn't know too much about, but there are things that are glaring that you kind of, it takes away from things when you're watching and you're like, yeah, but, you know, and I think that's what takes away from the film.
Yeah, and that's one of those deals where, like, you could look at a movie like Saving Mr. Banks, and you could say, oh, well, like, if, like, people who, like, know the real story of Walt Disney, they'll be like, man, that guy smoked a lot and all this stuff, and, like, they barely hinted at it, and he did all these other things, he was sexist and all this stuff, and I'm like, I understand that, and, you know, believe me, like, with this story, I was the one that said, man, like, they didn't hit out a lot of stuff, but at the same time, you know, it's like you said it yourself, like, for this story, it wouldn't make sense to put that there, and you know, it's difficult when you put those names to those characters, it sucks, but at the same time, that's why, you know, sometimes you shouldn't, you know, I'm glad they didn't call it N.W.A. I'm glad they didn't call it the Dr. Dre story, even though at the end it became the Dr. Dre story.
No, that's important to point out, and it's not. It's more than just these people, but at the same time, you can't ignore the details you do know about these people. Yeah. You know?
Kind of to transition to the next thing. Like, obviously, like, we obviously, like, that being said, everything we said, we liked the movie. It was really...
Clearly, other people did too. I mean, it's $60 million this past weekend.
That's nuts.
And it's
like,
likely going to win the box office again.
Like, I guess, like, just to close, like, obviously, I thought it was good.
Yep.
You know, like, every week I like to say, you know, whatever movie we rank, I don't like to say, oh, it was a 9.5 out of, like, you know, whatever. It's like, no, it was a good movie. Go check it out. It's really cool. That being said, amongst your favorite movies that deal with, like, music, biopics, and whatnot, where would this one rank?
I think time will tell in terms of where it fits on my overall list, but I think it's definitely on the list.
Yeah.
I think it does a good job, especially because originally the script was 3.5 hours long, and you could tell where they maybe skimped on a few stories that you wanted to know more about, but
make it a franchise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Part 2 on its way.
N.W.A, The Age of Ultron. Sorry, I say it every week. Good God.
It's okay. It's a theme. No, but I think overall it fits in my list of effective music biography storytelling, because that's a very difficult genre to pull off.
Yeah.
And it's a quick 2.5 hours, which is also an accomplishment for a film.
Yeah.
And I'm entertained. I learned something. Yeah. And I take some of the things with a grain of salt because you have to thread a comprehensive narrative.
So I completely agree. For me, if I were to compare it to other ones, like I said before, La Bamba is my favorite one.
I'm glad it keeps being brought up because people who haven't seen that need to go see it.
That's a really good movie. I just think it's so... It just, like, it captures the time, it captures the music, and it captures the importance that guy, Richie Valens, had on society, because he was, like, just briefly go over
of course.
He was a big American act that happened to be Mexican.
Yeah.
And that was, like, it's a big deal. And then he died in a plane crash, and, like, and arguably probably one of the biggest moments in music history. Yeah. It was called The Day the Music Died. So, like, that's, for me, it's a big deal, but I love that movie. I think it's an awesome genre of movies to analyze one day. Yeah. But yeah, no, we'll leave it at that.
Hey, go check it out.
Yeah,
so let us know what you think.
Yeah, so now, we're going to get into the real part of our show.
I'm excited about this.
We're literally straight out of Compton, out of our review. Sorry, a bad joke of the day out of the way.
No, it's okay.
All right, we're getting into the news. We're getting into the news. All right, so, speaking of Straight Outta Compton, it debuted in its opening weekend to $60.2 million. What do you think about that?
For a rated R film that you would perceive to have perhaps a niche audience, That's fantastic, and good on Universal for picking another.
That's literally the only thing I was
choice.
saying. Universal, like we said in our last episode, already broke the box office record for earnings in a year, and it's only August. And
They're
now
just laughing their way to
this
that.
is like their third movie that's gonna gross over 100 million, maybe fourth movie.
Yeah,
like it's
easily.
Think about that. Like it's amazing,
and it's a broad range. It's not like they're just picking action movies. They're firing on all cylinders right now.
You got Pitch Perfect 2. You have this movie. Obviously, you have Jurassic World. Fast 7.
I mean,
jeez, man,
it's ridiculous.
Ridiculous. You know what, man? I guess they're the underrated studio, and they don't. I get this. No superhero movie.
No superhero movie.
No superhero movie.
That's in this day and age. That's
unheard of.
That's the chupacabra of film studios. That's ridiculous.
Dude, that is like, that is what. Man, dude. No, but there's another thing. The next bit of news that we're going to talk about deals with Michael Shannon, the actor who played General Zod.
Yes.
In Man of Steel.
Underrated actor.
Underrated actor. And now there's news that have recently come out where he spoke in an interview with Vulture magazine.
You tell.
Yeah, and there was some interesting stuff. Let me read the quote. Because he does, if you saw the trailer for Batman v Superman, you saw that he makes an appearance as a corpse. Yep. And you're like, oh, that's really cool. Let's ask him about, hey, what was it like being a corpse? But then the interviewer ended up getting an interesting answer. He's like, he says that I was in my costume. He's like, what was it like being back in character?
Okay.
And Batman v Superman.
They're fishing. I like it.
But speaking of fish, it's funny that you say that. He's like, I was in my costume and I couldn't use my fingers because in the sequel I have flippers instead of hands. So I had these wax flippers on my fingers and I couldn't open the door, and I could hear Zach, as in Snyder, being like, where's Shannon? Where the fuck is he? And the whole crew was standing around, and I was knocking on the door with my flippers, like, let me out of here.
Okay.
No, that's the quote. No.
First reaction from someone who does not have as much knowledge on this topic.
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean? Can you discern anything from the comics based on what he just said?
This is the thing. It's weird because, like, the guy, he's a pretty, like, he's worked in a lot, like, he has a way of speaking where he has a lot of his own lingo. Like,
this particular actor?
This particular actor.
Okay.
No, Michael Shannon. So, like, we can't necessarily say, oh, he had literal flippers on his hands.
What could flippers mean to him?
This is the thing, though. Like,
what
this tells me, and, like, this what should be a big, like a big notifier for everyone, is that his character's alive again in the movie. You don't just put flippers on a corpse. Why are you gonna put flippers on a corpse?
From the head down,
yeah.
That's from the
and
head
he's
up
like, "Oh, I'm in my costume." I'm like, wait a second, dude. Wait, does he have a bigger role than just the corpse that we saw in the trailer?
It's attention to detail.
Rumors are that Lex Luthor is experimenting on his body and creates this character known as Doomsday, which happens to be the same character that kills Superman. So this is the thing. So maybe he's mutated, and maybe he's half fish, half dolphin.
My question is that something that's in the comics? Do we get a mutated amphibian-esque Doomsday? Like, is that something that's ever happened?
I can't deny it. I'm pretty sure that's happened, especially for a Superman comic.
All right.
It's like fish dude.
I have to take your word for it. You're my go-to guy. On that.
It's very interesting. So General Zod's back in the game.
I have absolutely no idea what that means. So
next question. All right. Next bit of news. Colin Trevorrow was announced at Disney's D23 convention,
which I want to go to next year. Was
announced that he will be directing Star Wars Episode 9.
Okay.
Which is 9.
For all these,
I'll be back. For those of you who don't know, Colin Trevorrow recently directed the big Super Smash record-breaking hit that was Jurassic World. What are your thoughts? He's only directed 2 movies. Just want you to know that. It was Safety Not Guaranteed, and then this one.
First impression, I'm assuming he is as in love with the Star Wars brand as he was with Jurassic Park. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt. If it were an entity or a property that required him to maybe work from scratch to a certain extent, maybe I'd be a little worried, because I like Safety Not Guaranteed, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I have more faith in him giving us something that us as true fans would appreciate. I don't know. I'd like to know who's writing the film. Yeah. Because that will be the marker. Like, Jurassic World wasn't exactly a complex film, so I'd like to see if he's able to...
And he's been on record saying that. He's like, it was a very straightforward film. You watch it, and you're just building up for the fight scenes.
As long as he's self-aware of that, then I have more faith that he'll be able to do something a little more complex with Episode 9.
I just find it interesting, because like he's been on several interviews saying that, like, for Jurassic World, he's like, oh, I'm not directing the sequel. He's like, oh, why not? I was like, oh, it's not for me.
So we're gonna do
and then all of a sudden, he's like, you're going to go do another franchise. It's like, interesting. It's like... But But like the fact that they have that much faith in the guy when he's only really directed 2 movies in his career, literally just Jurassic World, Safety Not Guaranteed, and then shorts. And to me, like that, I respect that Lucasfilm is taking a chance on really good young filmmakers and actors. Mm-hmm. But man, dude, that's hey man, you know what? More power to you, dude.
They have a few years to back out if they need to, but I have faith in him. I think he could, if he has the right team around him. I'm saying it's gonna be good.
I'm excited. Star Wars is Star Wars. I'll take that. Next piece of news is that recently there was a Hunger Games poster for the last Hunger Games movie that was released. And if you look closely, accidentally contained the word.
Don't say it.
It rhymes with punt.
Yes.
It just rhymes with punt.
We're not saying that word.
Technically,
it's the worst word.
Technically, it doesn't just say punt.
Right. No, of course not.
But like, it's like people saw it and they're like, "My God."
Well, I did see when this first broke, and I was like, "That can't be that bad." And I clicked on, it's that bad. How could they not have seen this?
It's one of those. It's like they probably handed it off to a 2-year-old daughter, and it says, "You know what? I'm gonna put this word in there. I just learned this today." And I think it means something that I'm supposed to, like, not mess with or something. I'm like, no.
I feel like they have a 2-year-old graphic designer. No, I feel like it was obviously just an honest mistake.
That's a bad mistake. That's fireable, man.
It certainly is. But it fits into the any news is good news kind of thing in nowadays culture. I mean, that went viral immediately. Like, it almost was like, well... I mean,
it took me a while to see because I was just like, all right, I'm looking. I thought it was like something like really small.
Oh, you didn't see it right away?
And then all of a sudden, they're like, look at the number 100 because it was and the poster says 100 days away.
But the 0 in 100 looks like a C.
And it looks like a C, and it's like punt everywhere.
And
it's just like, gosh,
why?
Why would you have to put the word punt in front of Jennifer Lawrence's face?
It's inappropriate, and I'm glad we're saying punt instead of anything else.
Oh my God!
But it looks like they took it down immediately. But as the internet is, it lives forever. Unfortunately.
All right. So we're gonna get into our newest segment now.
Yes.
We have no idea what we were gonna call it. Nope. I called it meh or neh, but we can just say it's just basically like, are you excited about something or do you not care? Basically. Right. So we're gonna rip through some nothing like crazy news, but it's just something that's interesting. You guys should know.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of D23, Disney unveiled like semi-rough trailers for their live action adaptations of their Disney classics.
Got a few on the slate.
Yeah, obviously Beauty and the Beast was there. The Jungle Book got highly crazy like reactions, and then there was Alice Through the Looking Glass, the sequel to Alice in Wonderland. Based on all of those, what do you think? Meh or nah?
Individually, meh or nah. I am excited about Beauty and the Beast most of all. I was meh with the first live-action Jungle Book in the 90s, so I'll be meh for this one, because it's Jon Favreau, so it can't be that bad.
Yeah.
And I did not like the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland, so I am going to go with meh on that.
Straight up meh until I see the footage. That's the way I see it.
But it's just too much CGI for me. I just can't get into
it. I need to see some reality.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie.
Sure.
All right, next bit of news. Hugh Jackman has been said that he's in talks to be playing the character Odysseus in the adaptation of The Odyssey. Would you like to see Hugh Jackman as Odysseus?
I would love to see him sink his teeth into something that's complex and theatrical and over the top and
I'd like to see him in that, like that old Greek, anything theater related. I want to see Hugh Jackman in.
Yeah.
You put him in a Greek tragedy, hot damn, man.
Yeah, I'm in.
Dude, that's like an action movie.
My butt's already in the theater.
Speaking of butts, no, I'm just kidding. No, no more Hugh Jackman stuff. Recently, he said that he put out on his Instagram. He asked Wolverine fans. He's like, "Hey, would you guys want to see in the last Wolverine movie?" And there was a huge response. And Jackman was recently on record saying, "Oh, after reading all the stuff, a lot of people just wanted to see me take on the role of the Berserker Rage version of Wolverine, where he's just a mad guy all the time."
Yeah.
And they also wanted Victor Creed, a.k.a. Sabretooth, to return, as in the same Sabretooth that was in X-Men Origins Wolverine, played by Liev Schreiber.
Okay.
That being said, would either of those make you meh or nah?
For me personally, I think I like the little sides of anger that you get from Hugh Jackman when he does he's kind of crabby sometimes as Wolverine. I'd like him to go off the deep end.
I'd like
see
to
what
go.
he does.
Yeah, I like him to have because in the comics he has Hulk level rage. Like he's angry.
I'd love to see it because I feel like they toned him down just because he became such a likable film character that they didn't really test him too much. I'd like to see him kind of stretch himself.
Because when you saw the Wolverine, the most recent Wolverine movie, like you saw the after effects of being like that angry. He's just like secluded. Yeah. He's like, well, we'd like to see the before of that.
Yeah.
Please let me see the really crash and burn, like when you're just really that mad and you just take everybody with you.
It's almost like they hinted at it. They're just like, there's the aftermath, but they never really dive into it. And I love Liev Schreiber, and I feel like that's one of the few actors that physically can match up to Hugh Jackman.
He did.
So I'd like to see them explore that again and actually give them their due.
Next bit of news. All right, Shane Black has been who's taken over the Predator franchise and doing a reboot. Yes. The producer went on record saying Shane Black's Predator sequel will reinvent the franchise. Merne.
My first inclination is to say nah, but I really like Shane Black.
Shane Black's awesome.
I love Shane Black, so I will see it, but I will be skeptical.
Shane Black helped clean up the script for the original one and was in the original one. So I'm gonna say, you know what? Yeah, like you know what? We have yet to see a good sequel from Predator, so I'm like, you know what? You could only go better. So I'm down. All right, next bit of news. Zorro is in talks to get a post-apocalyptic reboot. Are you down?
First reaction?
Are you down?
Yes. My first okay, so this was one of those topics that we talked about like off air for a few seconds, and
off the mic.
I know that your inclination was to be like, "What? No, why would they do that?" And I was sitting there like, "Yeah, that sounds so stupid. Why would they do that?" But my first reaction was genuinely like, "Hell yeah, I'll see that," because I think it could be actually, if it's shot like a serious like Zorro, like a very nice like
elegant,
like nice
romantical.
Yeah, like there's something about it that if it's shot like a Zorro film, but there's just chaos going on around it, it could be done really well. Like that's how I want Pride and Prejudice and Zombies to be effective, is that it's within a certain genre, and that genre is taken seriously and turned on its head.
Anybody that says, you know what, we're going to just change the story, make it post-apocalyptic, I say it's not going to work.
But we just saw the Boy Scouts trailer or whatever.
That's not post-apocalyptic. That's apocalyptic in the process.
True. But it's definitely like, it's a play on something you wouldn't expect, and it seems like clashing genres, and I would be intrigued. I could see it being an absolute fail, but I could see it being kind of fun.
I have a hard time believing that a man with fencing skills exists in the post-apocalyptic world.
But that's what I'm saying, is you're limiting your options here. That's a very effective way.
Good God.
You never run out of ammo.
Sorry, Antonio Banderas isn't coming back, I'm not watching. Alright, next bit of story. Warner Bros. Is developing an adaptation of Dante's Inferno. Interesting or yeah?
It depends. I feel like that's such a hard narrative to pull off. If anyone can do it, perhaps Warner Brothers could, but it's just one of those things where I'm skeptical that it can be done effectively.
It depends on who they pick as a director, and depends on who, like, the tone they want to tell in the story, because it's such a dark tale, but it's such a classic tale at the same time.
There's a lot going on,
It's really, I need to learn more, but as of right now, I'm like, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, next bit of news, He-Man. Their He-Man movie is being made, is being developed, and it's getting script rewrites done by Thor the Dark World writer. Yay or nay?
I never saw Thor the Dark World,
but
I've been told it's one of the worst in Phase 2, so I will go with nah, just based on peer pressure and what people told me.
I watched the original He-Man movie.
You did. Of course you did.
And I never want to watch a He-Man movie ever in my life again.
Okay, so that coupled with the Thor news probably doesn't make it any
it's like, better. You know what? You're going to make a bad Thor movie and mix it with this character that's been beaten, dragged through the mud? Sorry, I'm not doing it. Alright, next bit of news. Will Smith has recently said that he may only produce Bad Boys 3 and 4, but not star in them. Would you still watch it, yeah or nay?
Is Martin Lawrence in it?
Yes. Maybe?
It leans me toward wanting to, because I love Martin Lawrence in those movies.
But you can't have, like, if the dynamic is gone.
You're right. It's probably a smart move for him to kind of go on the producing side than to force maybe the hand that he's not really good at dealing anymore. But I loved Bad Boys 2. I didn't like Bad Boys, or the original, as much, but I like what they did with Bad Boys 2, so I hope that he goes in front of the camera.
Bad Boys 2 is fun. Nay, if Will Smith's not involved.
I think I agree
with
that.
Nay. And finally, the movie that won't die. The Crow reboot is supposedly still happening, even though the production company that is financing it is gone bankrupt.
Dude, I'll believe it when I see it.
I will say this. This thing has more lives than any cat I've ever met.
No, it's ridiculous. It
needs to die.
I think it's a sign. It just needs to be put to bed.
Oh, good God. All right. So that ends that quick segment.
Yes.
We're going into our favorite segment here. And I probably said that for every single one.
We love our stuff.
Yeah. So this is my favorite segment. Mine.
You feel so formal.
I know, it's so good. I like to call this hypothetical hot shit.
Oh, yes, because you like just saying that.
I just like saying it. It's just so cool.
Alright, let's dive in.
Where we ask a bunch of scenarios and say, yeah, well, what do you think about that? Just to see, let's create discussion. First bit of discussion. Today there was news that Jennifer Lawrence is Hollywood's highest paid actress. But, is she the best actress working in Hollywood?
No. No.
Who would you have?
Oh, I knew that was going to be the next question.
Caitlyn Jenner. Oh, God.
Well, who's better? In Hollywood, I think Tilda Swinton's a better actress.
Okay.
I still think Meryl Streep's a better actress. I mean, that's an obvious one. Okay. But I think there are actresses who take the same kind of risks she does. But she's definitely straddled the creative, artistic career side simultaneously with blockbusters, which is almost unheard of, especially
it's really hard
for a female
to do.
actress.
She's as busy as any actress out there right now.
And she's not quite overexposed, which I think is a dangerous, like the Anne Hathaway syndrome of being in too many things or showing yourself too many times. Yeah. She took herself off the radar this year and is only really coming back out for
just the Hunger Games and a couple other David O. Russell films.
She's doing a really good job with that. And I think that's helping her kind of last because she's been in everything the last few years. So
I honestly I think this actress could be really good if she would just kind of range herself a little more. And she's actually number 2 on the list, Scarlett Johansson. I think she's really good.
Scarlett.
She's really good.
I feel bad I didn't even think of her.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not saying, she's that much better than Jennifer Lawrence, but I want to see Scarlett Johansson. Right now, the way we know her is Black Widow. At least a lot like Black Widow, Lucy, those kinds of roles. It's I want to see her do something kind of like the chances, she was terrific in Her. I saw that with you for the first time.
And it was just her voice.
Yeah. I think I would and she should have been cast in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. David Fincher was just a jerk and was just saying, people are just waiting for her to get naked. So what, man? So what if I am? Who cares? But the thing is, she had the acting chops. Let her be in the role. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, and I think the difference between Scarlett and Jennifer is that, and I'm pretending I know them first name basis. Hello.
J-Law.
That J-Law, I don't even like saying it out loud, is that she's very young. Scarlett Johansson has this sex appeal because she seems like an adult, and Jennifer Lawrence, I feel obviously she has her own personality, and she's definitely an adult. She's a woman. She does these really interesting
She's a free spirit,
but she's definitely sometimes I'm taken out of her roles because she's so young, playing characters that should be played by someone 8 to 10 years older. Yeah. So I feel it's not her fault. She has the chops to pull it off. It's just sometimes I'm she looks really young. If she'll come into her own, and I think that's when she'll get into that ScarJo territory. Yeah. They both have awkward nicknames, but whatever. I think you're right. Scarlett Johansson's pretty awesome.
Yeah. All right. So actually, there's another hypothetical one that I actually think would transition really well to this one. Something T.J. Miller said.
Ah, yes. Yeah. All right, let me pull this up real quick. So T.J. Miller, who, if you want to just say some of the films he's been in.
T.J. Miller is awesome. For those of you who are HBO fans, you may know him from Silicon Valley.
Yes.
He's the guy, he's my favorite character on that show.
He's a goofball and everything.
He's really funny. This is the thing, he's not a big name yet, but he's one of those faces where you saw him, you're like, oh, that's the guy. He was in that one movie, She's Out of My League.
Yep.
He was terrific.
He looks like he's gonna be wonderful. He's gonna be wonderful in Deadpool, just from the
he's gonna be in
Deadpool.
We've seen. And his interaction with Ryan Reynolds is what I'm looking forward to the most. Absolutely. But he said something that was kind of interesting. That kind of got you riled up.
A little bit, yeah. So earlier, it looks like it broke today. He was promoting one of his stop motion animated films called Hell and Back. He spoke with Yahoo, and this was something he said about comedians taking dramatic roles. He said, quote, I think that's totally weird when someone becomes a great comedian, which I still have yet to do, which I thought was cool he qualified that, and then they're like, okay, I've spent my whole life trying to make you guys laugh, and now you have to watch me cry. It's crazy. It's totally stupid. He goes on to say, go do something on your own. Go make a little short film where it's a drama and you're crying and put that on the internet. I'm not knocking on the door to see if there's any room in House of Cards. There's plenty of stuff that can do. There's plenty of people that can do that stuff very well. Yeah. Close quote. So, I want to pose a question to you, since I feel like you've been doing a lot of the heavy lifting. As someone who grew up with the likes of Rob Williams, Jim Carrey, all these juggernauts in the comedic world taking on serious roles, is what he said as insane as I think it is, or like what's your opinion?
I don't. This is the thing. Like, I'm not I'm not gonna overreact to it. I'm not saying that you are. I think like it would totally upset you because it's all like thing. Like, I can see where you're coming from. And I'm gonna let you make your point.
Unwarranted, you know?
But yeah, I can see where he's coming from. It's like where you see all. I think it's the common thing now. Like when you see guys like Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, and those guys, you're like, these guys are really funny, and it seems like just right away they jump into these dramatic roles, and it's most of the time it's not their fault. It's just someone reached out and said, "Hey, you know, we like you to be in this really serious role."
Yeah,
and, you
true.
know,
Some
whatever.
of them aren't asking to be.
Yeah, and like it's like Adam Sandler for Punch Drunk Love. Like he had a long career, all of a sudden it's like Punch Drunk Love. It's like it's not like he was doing that all the time. He did a couple more roles after that, but I personally I don't understand where this is coming from.
That's what throws me off. Is I'm like, he must feel very strongly about this, which
Yeah.
I feel like I should be reacting very strongly to it. Yeah.
It sounds like really, I don't mean to be offensive, it sounds very hick-like. It's like, if you're born this way, this is the way you're supposed to be.
It seems a little limited. It seems like I feel like he hasn't, and he said it himself, is why I'm using it as reference, is that he said, I haven't reached the pinnacle of my comedic talent yet. But and I feel like him not having reached that, I don't think he realizes that just because you reach that is not the zenith of your career. Like, you can do other things. It's not like all these different mountains you can't climb because you're on top of the other one. Like, you can be doing multiple things, and I feel like he's limiting himself, and he's trying to force others to be limited just because of his short-sightedness. It's kind of weird. I don't understand.
I guess just for devil's advocate's sake, I think what he's trying to say is that he's like, why don't you perfect comedic stuff first before you try to do something else where you're like trying to take on too much? I think that's probably what he means.
I can completely agree with that. The fact that that's not what he said is what worries me, is that he went the next step to say, like, they shouldn't be doing that at all. And I'm
Let me text him. I know the guy. No.
Talk to TJ.
Yeah. All right, so next hypothetical scenario.
Yes.
All right, so Kathleen Kennedy, for those who don't know, president of Lucasfilm.
She's awesome.
Recently came out and revealed the age of Han Solo. And now, if you guys don't know, he's actually getting his own movie, his origin story. That's a discussion for itself. But she came out on record and said, that he's going to be, in the movie, he's going to be playing in his late teens, early 20s. Mm-hmm. With that information, who would you cast as Han Solo, and why?
I have the perfect choice, and I know that this has been a discussion on several podcasts.
Yeah.
And
Daniel Day-Lewis. Shaves 3 times a day.
When you take out the context of Han Solo and you're like, you're going to cast a movie, and it's Daniel Day-Lewis or the person that we're thinking of, you would say Daniel Day-Lewis, but this is Han Solo. Let's keep it to Han Solo.
Method actors can find a way. All right, he'll get surgery
retroactively. I'm 22.
He's just gonna have the weirdest voice. What's up, Skippy Dad?
Yeah, he just goes way far back.
How about this Millennium Falcon?
He's lost.
He doesn't even talk like that.
He's lost like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Go ahead. I don't read the script. The script reads me.
Exactly. Like, he's in the weeds.
Who would you cast?
I would cast Ansel Elgort.
Yes.
And I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly because it's
Ansel.
It's very exotic.
He's so hot right now.
But in terms of his career, he is sort of coming into his own. He's been in a few pretty big films, a few smaller films that's shown that he actually has a little bit of range.
Mm-hmm. Just a little bit.
I feel like for a Han Solo character, you need to be charismatic. You need to attract attention on screen, which I think this person can do and has done in a few of the things he's done. Especially when he wasn't the lead or the co-lead. Like even in Carrie, I feel like I noticed him, and he was just sort of the pseudo love interest in that film. And of course, if you know the film, it's pseudo for a reason.
Yeah.
But I think Elgort could be, and he's only 21.
Yeah.
So and to be talented at that
age.
young,
That's literally the perfect age that they're looking for.
And he looks like him. I mean,
like unless I don't know how advanced we are in medicine or whatnot, but like I would love to see Harrison Ford play Han Solo.
Just do Jeff Bridges in Tron, just a computer.
You know what? CGI performance where he just moves really slow, but it looks really young.
I don't know if Harrison has like the patience to have the dots on him.
I haven't been on
the camera.
Can I get a ride to high school? Good God. Chewie.
That would be a much more compelling film.
My mom's calling me. I gotta get home.
Harrison's like, I don't know why I'm doing Christian Bale
Ansel Elgort was the perfect pick. Honestly, you look at him, you look at a picture of the first A New Hope, he's perfect.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here. No, honestly, I think it can happen. Speaking of Star Wars stuff, next
Yes,
hypothetical. All right, so Star Wars Rogue One released their first photo, and they also released the cast. Now, if you guys haven't seen the photo, go on our Facebook page, Twitter account. You'll see it.
Yep.
It has a picture of most of the cast there. You see Felicity Jones front and center.
You do.
The one thing that you notice though, very gritty, and it's like you take away the title of Star Wars. It's like you wouldn't think that's a Star Wars film.
No.
So my question to you is, because this looks like the first non-Star Warsy looking Star Wars movie.
Yep.
Can a non-Star Warsy Star Wars movie work without it feeling like Star Wars or looking like Star Wars?
I think I say yes because it's an anthology film that's out of the episode canon.
Yeah.
So I feel like they can take a few risks. They can do something a little different because it's not Episode 8. It's Rogue One. You know what I'm saying? They're able to they're offshooting the storyline. So why not change the feel of the film? Let's go with a different look, I mean, I'm staring at the photo right now, and you're right. It is grittier. I like the idea of it feeling like it's going to be
it doesn't even
ensemble
look like,
cast. Like, it just seems like a different kind of film, and I'm excited.
Exactly right. It's a different kind of film. I think it's a very bold move for Lucasfilm to do, to make a non-Star Wars. It's like, because imagine like for instance, like imagine an Indiana Jones anthology movie, and it's set to look like Zero Dark 30, which is pretty much what they're doing in this movie. And it's just like, what?
I feel like that hurts my heart a little bit to think about. But yeah, it's
the same thing. And it's
you're taking some of the campy out of Star Wars.
That's the
scary.
thing. It's taking the campy slapstick stuff.
I'm getting afraid now that the more we talk about it. Like, no.
Like, there's a legit fear because like you have that opinion now where it's like you Dark Knight something.
Yeah.
Where you give it like the.
And it's getting worn out, to be honest.
That's the thing. Yeah. Like you saw, I saw Fantastic Four, and it was Dark Knighted.
I like to point out I did not wait so much on that film.
But yeah, like I'm excited for it. But it's a bold move because it's an anthology movie. But a lot of like the casual fan that doesn't necessarily follow Star Wars is gonna sit there and say, "Whoa, man! They Dark Knighted Star Wars. Not cool."
It's easy to simplify it that way.
You have to make sure that hits. Yeah. You have to make. I think they will because I think it's the first dramatic Star Wars movie we've had, like a purely dramatic film.
That's a good point.
So
if the story carries it, it's worth it.
Yeah. So, like, speaking of continuation stories, filming on Fantastic Beasts, the Harry Potter spin-off movie, has begun, and the title is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Now, my question to you is: we just finished, I guess, what was it, 8-film Harry Potter franchise? Are you pumped about another potential Harry Potter franchise?
I don't like the way you phrase that question. Okay, so...
You're a liar, Jen. You're a wizard, Harry.
I have to preface this. First of all, that would make me so happy if that sentence were real and pointed at me. If I was a wizard, because if
Hagrid just showed up and called you Harry...
and knocks my door down and just...
It's like,
it's fine. That's not my name.
Want to talk verbal.
If that letter's for me, that's fine. I have been waiting for my Hogwarts letter since I was 9, damn it. So for me to have another Harry Potter canon story written by Rowling, set in America, I'm in. And the cast looks awesome.
Yeah, like you have some of the names there, right? Let's read off some of those.
Okay, so we have Colin Farrell, Eddie Redmayne, Ezra Miller. I mean, you have just the first few names alone. You're pretty set. They have David Yates directing, who did a solid job with a few
directed
films.
a number of the films, though.
Right.
The Harry Potter franchise.
And he kept it going, because I mean, I don't know if they were my favorite in the franchise, but at that point, they'd gotten so far along in the films that, like, he just kept them strong. You know what I'm saying? He kept them going in the right way. So I'm excited.
I'm excited about the cast. It's interesting about the director, because you cast the guy who directed numerous Harry Potter films. And you're coming back just to direct one? I don't think so. I think you're coming back because you want to capture the feel again. Yeah. And I think they're totally setting up for another franchise. I'm excited because I recently just fell in love with those movies. I remember in high school, I was just like, oh, you kids and your Harry Potter.
They're so good,
and I was just like really cynical about it. But then I went back and I started watching them recently, and I was just like, man, these are a lot of fun. You know, aside from the Goblet of Fire, you know, all of them were pretty interesting.
I hate the 5th book, so for me, I have only seen the 5th movie once because I just hate that book so much.
Oh my gosh!
But people like the 5th movie, so whatever.
That being said, you know, you get Colin Farrell going all True Detective on us in this movie. Who knows what he's going to be doing?
Hopefully
I trust him. I trust him. I'm really excited about it. But yeah, so we're going to move to our last question. Last question. Okay.
Because I'll get sucked in my Harry Potter world if I don't turn this off.
Good God! All right, so there was a report coming out. That it came out. It didn't come out already. that Prometheus 2, Ridley Scott's Prometheus 2, is delaying Neil Blomkamp's Alien sequel, Alien 5. Now, the reason this is interesting is because Prometheus 2 is supposedly the sequel to the prequel that was Prometheus of Alien movies.
Okay, yeah.
So technically, it's still a prequel that's delaying the sequel to Aliens. So my question to you is, what would you rather see? The prequel?
My question to you is, what the hell did I just say?
I'm just surprised I got it out and I didn't say,
No, that was good.
No, my question to you is, from an Alien fan perspective, which I feel we both are, would you rather see a prequel or would you rather see the sequel first?
You've got Scott on the prequel, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going prequel, and I will tell you why. Because we're both skeptical about Neil's consistency as a director. That being said, instead of bashing him, I will say that I would like to think that Prometheus was not just hella random.
No.
Like, I would like to think that he had intention with every loose end and plot hole that seemed to exist in Prometheus. I want to know that he had some reason for everything. If that movie comes out and it's just more plot holes that are just like, well, you just go watch Alien, it'll make sense, I'm just going to, like, I'll have to give up on him.
Release the face hugger.
Prometheus is so compelling, even with so many errors in that film, that I just want to see if he had something going for that. Like, he knew where he was headed.
I blame not Neil Blanc for Prometheus.
Like, what?
No, I blame Damon Lindelof, the writer for Prometheus, because this is the thing.
He's an easy target.
This is the thing. Like, he has a track record of sucking. That's the thing. Like,
it's just he's Citizen Kane. He helped contribute to Lost, the first 2 seasons of which are fantastic.
You contributed to television. You did not contribute to movies yet. It's just like
right.
It's the exact same argument I have for J.J. Abrams, minus the Star Trek movies. But this is the thing. This is my thing. I love Prometheus 2.
Yeah. And
I prefer to see the sequel to Prometheus. So that means Prometheus 2.
Just visual, everyone. He looks like he's pained with every word.
This is the thing. I'm a
saying.
huge Alien fan. Believe me, like, obviously the first 2 Alien movies are what they are. They're the classics. Everything else has been hit or miss. Everything's been really bad recently.
Yeah.
Prometheus, I loved. I will defend that movie to the end.
Me too.
It's a really good. It's one of those movies where subtext is more important than story.
Yeah, and that drives people nuts sometimes.
It's like, you could, call me crazy, like, but you can make the same argument for 2001: Space Odyssey.
Oh God, yeah.
Where, like, I remember sitting in the movie theater when I watched Prometheus. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It was quiet. Everybody looked around and just got up. It was really quiet. It wasn't like nobody talked. Everybody just sat there for a moment and was just like it wasn't like they were like it was just like they were confused. Like they were just really lost. I was just I had never experienced a movie experience like that.
Which is refreshing to have.
Which is
that.
weird.
I don't like my handheld all the time.
Yeah.
I just want to know that that was intentional and not just a Lindelof mistake or Ridley Scott leaving something on the cutting room floor.
No, believe me, like there were cliches in the first Prometheus where it's like, okay, here's the face hugger scene. Oh man, here's
Charlize Theron should run to the side instead of straight when
we don't know if she had peripheral blindness. We don't know that.
Sorry, that's just such a trope.
Maybe she's just like really. Who knows? Maybe she was just really drunk on the vodka she was drinking. That was just straight up, But that being said, like the reason I picked the Prometheus 2 is because Neil Blomkamp has been missing, like
more than he's hit. Yeah.
Yeah, like Chappie, terrible from what I heard. I still have yet to watch it.
I didn't see it either.
Elysium, not great. Like there was some great moments in there. There was great characters, and like Kruger, the antagonist in that movie, awesome.
Production design was solid for the
Production design is always awesome in his movies.
Yeah.
And then District 9 was obviously what it was. It was an Oscar-nominated movie. But he has yet to make a legit movie since then. He has everybody's been, like he's been kind of riding that look of District 9, the robotic look and everything. Since then. And Chappie was kind of that's the thing. I think his best thing they could do is not developing something on his own, trying to jump into another person's world.
Just get back into the saddle and go through the motions again.
So I'm looking for. I'll watch both of them, but Ridley Scott started this thing. I trust his vision because he started this thing, and Prometheus had the look. It had everything it wanted to. People said it looked too pretty because it wasn't grainy like the first one. I don't give a shit.
Whatever.
Like, I don't care.
That's what my sensibilities wanted.
And the fact that he's actually moving away from the alien kind of mythology in a way, because he's on record saying there are not going to be any xenomorphs in this movie. Those are like the black aliens with the mouth inside the mouth, kind of thing. Yeah.
No, but I like that because part of what makes the first film so compelling is just like the WTF-ness of it. You're like, oh, what? I don't want the problem of like episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Star Wars where you're just like the inevitability of what's coming.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, Darth Vader's coming. Like that's a similar thread, and I don't need that. I want to know that world exists in his head and there's sense to it.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm looking forward to Prometheus 2. So you know what? Get into production right now. I want to see.
Did they say why they're being?
Well, it's really Scott because he's producing. Like he
just can't pull double duty. Is what.
This is the thing. He's just like I want my movie to come out first. He's like, you know what, man, Neil Blomkamp, wouldn't you wait your turn?
You can hold, yeah.
Wouldn't you? If you could wait, that'd be great.
I feel like that shouldn't hold anything up. He says that's how it goes, and you move on. Like, come on now.
No, but that is the last question, and that is our show for today.
Yeah, I love these segments. Let us know, guys, if you like these sort of nugget-sized, bite-sized news. Yeah.
And if this is the thing, like, if you guys have a question that you were like, hey, what would you guys think about this hypothetical situation? Let us know. We love answering them. I like hearing myself talk.
I like listening to Adrian talk, so we're good.
There's a chicken sandwich waiting for me somewhere.
It's not here, so we have to leave.
It's not here. This is true. That being said, I'm Adrian Alderete.
I'm JP Lee, and we'll see you when the credits roll.
See you in hell.
Hopefully that's not where we're headed.